The danger is not only failing to hear direction, the danger is calling every strong impression the voice of God. Now notice that, because there are two ditches here, and you can miss the road by falling into either one. Some people dismiss every inward leading. If they cannot explain it with natural reasoning, they will not consider it at all. They pray, but they expect no inward help, no correction, no restraint, no illumination. On the other side, some accept every thought, every feeling, and every sudden urge without examination. They felt it strongly, so they assume God said it. But strength of feeling is not proof of divine direction. Let me say it again. Refusing every inward impression is not maturity. Believing every inward impression is not maturity either. Prayer in the Spirit prepares the heart to receive direction, but mature guidance is recognized through alignment with truth, careful testing, settled peace, practical wisdom, and obedient action. Prayer and discernment belong together. Spiritual sensitivity and responsible judgment are not enemies, they are companions. You see, testing an impression does not mean you are resisting God. If the impression is sound, honest examination will not injure it. And if it is mistaken, examination may keep you from injuring yourself or somebody else. We do not honor God by being careless and then putting His name on our carelessness. Neither do we honor Him by becoming so suspicious that we refuse to be led at all. So ask yourself, how do I ordinarily make decisions? Do I move because I am afraid of what might happen? Do I hurry because somebody is pressuring me? Do I choose what I already wanted and then search for spiritual language to support it? Or do I pray, become quiet, test what I sense, and take responsibility for the step before me? That is where we are going. We will move from prayer to listening, from listening to testing, and from testing to obedience. The goal is not suspicion, as though God never guides. The goal is not presumption, as though every inner movement came from Him. The goal is mature cooperation with God, an open heart, a sound mind, and a willingness to obey. Now that we can see those two areas, we are ready to ask the next question. What does praying in the Spirit actually contribute to discernment, and what was it never intended to replace? Now let us make this distinction carefully. What your mind understands at the present moment and what your heart still needs to bring before God are not always the same thing. You may understand part of a situation and still not know the whole of it. You may know the people involved, the choices available, and the decision that must eventually be made, yet remain uncertain about motives, timing, and consequences. What do you do then? Do you quit praying until you can explain everything? Certainly not. You can pray beyond the boundary of your present understanding. You can bring the matter before God even when you cannot put every concern into a neat sentence. That is one value of praying in the Spirit. It allows you to remain prayerful where natural understanding has reached its present limit. Notice I said its present limit. Your understanding may grow. More facts may come. Wisdom may develop. But while that process is taking place, you do not have to surrender your heart to anxiety. Let me say it plainly. Limited understanding does not require prayerless worry. But praying beyond your understanding does not make your limited understanding infallible. Suppose you place a complicated matter before a trusted authority. You may not know every detail, but you can still submit the matter for consideration. Submission comes before the complete answer. Yet the act of submitting it does not mean you may walk out and invent the answer yourself. In the same way, surrender can precede clarity, but surrender does not manufacture clarity. Some people pray for a while and then expect an instant interpretation, a complete prediction, or a dramatic command. If nothing spectacular happens, they assume their prayer accomplished nothing. But the first result may not be information, it may be adjustment. Fear may begin to quiet down. A hidden motive may come into view. Patience may return. You may become willing to consider an answer you did not want before. You may discover that the first thing requiring change is not the circumstance, but your attitude toward it. That is real preparation, even though you still cannot draw the whole map. Now, prayer does not authorize you to contradict biblical truth. It does not excuse you from duties you already know. And it does not permit you to transfer responsibility for your personal choices onto God. You cannot make a careless decision and then protect it from examination by saying, I prayed about it. Prayer is not a shield for irresponsibility. So value spiritual prayer. Give yourself to it sincerely. Bring the unknown before God without fear. But remember the governing proposition, prayer in the Spirit prepares the heart. It does not exempt the heart from testing what follows. And if prayer prepares the heart, what kind of preparation takes place inside the person who is seeking direction? That is what we must notice next. Now notice what often happens inside us while we are asking for direction. The problem is not always that God is silent. Sometimes the problem is that everything else is making so much noise. Fear of losing an opportunity can speak loudly. The desire to be noticed can speak loudly. Impatience, resentment, imaginary deadlines, and attachment to one particular outcome can all crowd the heart. A person may pray earnestly, very earnestly, and still be demanding that God confirm a decision already made. So here is the question, and answer it honestly. Are you seeking direction, or are you seeking divine approval for your preference? There is a difference. If you are seeking direction, you must be willing to receive an answer that corrects you. You must be willing to wait when you wanted to hurry, to turn when you wanted to continue, or to accept a smaller assignment when you imagined something impressive. Surrender is not saying, Lord, show me why my plan is right. Surrender is saying, make me willing to do what is right, even if my plan is not it. You see, some people try to gain clarity by increasing their speed. They pray faster, talk more, ask more people, and chase one more sign. That is like running past a road sign and complaining that you could not read it. Running faster will not make the letters clearer. You may need to slow down long enough to see what is there. Sustained prayer often does something quieter than people expect. It begins to uncover the reason beneath the request. Perhaps you thought you wanted to serve, but you also wanted recognition. Perhaps you called it urgency, but underneath was fear. Perhaps you said you were waiting on God, but resentment had made you unwilling to hear any answer involving reconciliation. No spectacle was required. The motive simply became visible. And that brings us to another distinction. Emotional excitement is not the same as spiritual readiness. Excitement may make you feel that something must happen now. Readiness makes you humble, honest, patient, and willing. Excitement says, I must have this outcome. Readiness says, I am prepared to obey what is right. Take the matter before God plainly. Name the outcome you want. Do not pretend you have no preference when you do. Then release your demand for that outcome. Ask for willingness to receive correction, delay, redirection, or confirmation through sound discernment. Let me say it again. Direction becomes safer when prayer makes the heart teachable before it makes the path obvious. Preparation for guidance begins with surrendered motives, not stronger sensations. And once the heart has stopped demanding an answer, it must learn a neglected discipline, becoming quiet enough to notice what remains. Now, after you have prayed, do not be afraid to become quiet. Many people speak continuously, search for a stronger feeling, and then leave prayer the moment they run out of words. They have expressed everything on their heart, but they have not allowed any room for reflection. Listening does not mean straining until you hear something mysterious. It is not squeezing your mind and trying to make a voice appear. Listening is attentive stillness before God. Your mind remains available for understanding. Your conscience remains available for correction. Your will remains available for obedience. So pause deliberately. Do not force words into the silence. Do not invent an answer because you feel uncomfortable without one. And do not seize every thought that passes through your mind and declare it a message from heaven. If you sit quietly for 5 minutes, you may remember breakfast, an unpaid bill, and something somebody said last week. That does not make all three a revelation. But quiet attention can be fruitful. A responsibility you have neglected may return to mind. You may recognize that an apology is needed. A wise question may arise that you had not considered. You may sense caution about moving too quickly, or you may receive no conclusion at all. Now hear me. No immediate conclusion does not mean no divine care. Silence is not evidence of abandonment. Sometimes the most honest result of prayer is simply, I do not know yet, but I am no longer going to panic. Think about a jar of muddy water. If you keep shaking it, the water remains cloudy. Set it down, and the sediment begins to settle. The quiet did not put something new into the water. It allowed what was already there to become distinguishable. In the same way, constant inner agitation can make every concern look equally urgent. When urgency subsides, certain matters become clearer. Notice what remains. Does the same concern return without panic? Is it connected to truth, known duty, integrity, or the kind of person you are becoming? Does quietness expose a motive you need to surrender? Observe it, name it, do not exaggerate it. Let me say it again. Quietness is a place of observation, not automatic interpretation. You are learning to notice without manufacturing revelation. Pray sincerely, pause calmly, and allow what is unclear to remain unclear until it can be examined responsibly. That gives you a repeatable movement from prayer into honest attention. But observation alone is not discernment. What you notice in quietness must now be classified before it can be trusted. Now, what do we mean by an impression? We mean an inward sense, a thought, a mental picture, an inclination, a concern, or perhaps a restraint that has come into your awareness. You notice it. It seems important. It may even remain with you. But notice this carefully. An impression may deserve your attention without deserving immediate authority. That one distinction will save you from a great deal of confusion. Something can be worth examining without being ready to govern your conduct. You do not have to throw it away, and you do not have to bow down to it. You can hold it before God and test it. Why? Because impressions can arise from more than one source. Spiritual sensitivity may be involved, but personal desire can also produce an impression. Fear can produce one. Memory, habit, outside influence, and ordinary reasoning can all place thoughts before the mind. The fact that something appeared inwardly does not identify where it came from. And here is where people sometimes get into trouble. They have a weak impression, so they strengthen it with strong language. Instead of saying, this is what I presently sense, they say, God told me. Now nobody is permitted to question it. The language has promoted the impression before the impression is past examination. That can become more than careless. It can become harmful. If your claim affects another person's choices, relationships, obligations, or peace of mind, you must not use God's name to give your uncertainty authority over them. Are you listening? Spiritual language must never become a tool of pressure. There is nothing wrong with saying, I sense this. You can say, I am considering this. You can say, I need to test this further. And yes, you can say, I may be mistaken. That is not unbelief. That is honesty. Humility does not weaken genuine guidance. If the direction is sound, humility will not destroy it. Humility protects you while understanding develops, and it protects the people who may be affected by what you decide. So receive the impression without worshiping it. Name it accurately without enlarging it. Test it patiently without fearing that honest questions will make it disappear. Then obey only when there is appropriate clarity for the action being considered. Let me say it again. An impression is a candidate, not a verdict. This language allows you to remain spiritually open without exaggeration, manipulation, or premature certainty. And the first governing test is not how strongly you felt the impression. The first test is whether the proposed direction agrees with established biblical truth. Now we come to the governing test. Prayer in the Spirit never gives you private permission to overturn what Scripture has already established as true and right. An impression does not become holy merely because it arrived during prayer. If the proposed direction requires dishonesty, revenge, exploitation, irresponsibility, pride, or the neglect of a clear duty, you do not need a second impression to interpret the first one. Reject it. God's guidance will not require you to violate God's truth. Let me say that again. The strength of the experience does not outrank the authority of Scripture. You may have felt it deeply. You may have wept over it. You may have remained awake thinking about it. But intensity cannot turn what is wrong into what is right. Now there is another error here. Some people do not allow Scripture to govern their decision. They use religious language to decorate the decision they already prefer. They search until they find a phrase that sounds supportive, lift it away from its larger meaning, and fasten it onto their plan. That is not submission to truth. That is using truth as wrapping paper. Look at the whole direction of biblical teaching. What does it reveal about honesty, love, humility, faithfulness, justice, mercy, self-control, and responsibility? Do not ask only, can I find words that appear to permit this? Ask, does this choice belong inside the kind of life Scripture teaches me to live? You see, many decisions are not answered by one sentence that names the exact choice. Scripture may not tell you which lawful opportunity to accept or which sensible route to take. Instead, it shapes the person making the choice. It governs your motives, priorities, methods, and boundaries. Within those boundaries, you may need to exercise wisdom. And you do not need a supernatural sign for every permissible choice. Some people cannot make an ordinary responsible decision without asking for 3 signs, 2 dreams, and somebody else's confirmation. But if the choice is morally sound, wisely considered, and responsibly made, the absence of spectacle does not make it unspiritual. So examine the impression in order. What action am I considering? What moral principle is involved? Who may be affected by what I do? Can I carry this out truthfully, lovingly, and without hiding the method from honest examination? If the answer requires you to twist truth, injure people, escape responsibility, or exalt yourself, stop. If it remains within biblical boundaries, then it may continue to the next test. Notice the order. Scripture is not one optional confirmation among many. It is the boundary within which all the other confirmations must operate. Prayer may bring an impression into view, but Scripture determines whether that impression can remain under consideration. Yet an impression may avoid direct contradiction and still be distorted by the person receiving it. So the next test concerns character and fruit. Now the next question is not merely, could this choice be allowed? The next question is, what kind of person will I become by following it in this manner? That matters. An action may appear permissible on the surface, while the spirit in which you pursue it is proud, harsh, secretive, or controlling. So examine the character being formed while you consider the direction. Does this impression lead you toward humility or self-importance? Does it produce patient love or make you sharp with everybody who asks a question? Does it encourage truthfulness? Or do you find yourself hiding important facts? Does it move you to serve? Or does it give you a reason to control other people? You see, a supposedly spiritual direction becomes suspect when you must become manipulative to accomplish it. If you have to pressure people, silence honest counsel, exaggerate your certainty, or act as though you are beyond correction, something is wrong. Spiritual language cannot make cruelty holy. Now do not misunderstand me. Genuine obedience may be costly. It may require courage. It may inconvenience you, disappoint somebody, or lead through difficulty. But difficulty alone does not prove that God directed the choice. Recklessness can be difficult too. Stubbornness can cost you something too. Pain is not automatic confirmation. Think of a tree. You do not identify it by one dramatic leaf that blew across the yard. You look at what steadily grows from its branches. In the same way, do not judge an impression by one emotional moment. Look at the fruit developing around it. What is already appearing while you consider this decision? Is there peaceable strength, honest courage, teachability, patience, and care for those affected? Or is there agitation, obsession, contempt, secrecy, and pressure? Are you becoming more willing to hear truth, or more determined to avoid anyone who might disagree? Ask yourself another honest question. Would I still consider this direction if it brought me no admiration, no platform, and no personal advantage? Would I obey if nobody applauded? That question can uncover motives that excitement tries to hide. Let me say it again. Judge direction not only by how spiritual it sounds, but by the kind of conduct it forms. Character does not replace prayer. Character helps reveal whether you are interpreting your prayer faithfully. If the impression produces pride, manipulation, and irresponsibility, do not call that maturity. But if it cultivates humility, integrity, self-control, love, and accountable courage, it has passed an important test. Character reveals much, but important decisions also need the stabilizing witness of practical wisdom, real circumstances, and trustworthy counsel. That is where we turn next. Now, do not make the mistake of setting spiritual prayer against practical wisdom. Wisdom is not the enemy of prayer. If you have prayed about a matter, you should not be afraid to learn the facts. What obligations are already in place? What timing is involved? What will this decision cost? Who will carry the consequences if it goes wrong? What information is still missing? Those are not unbelieving questions. They are responsible questions. You see, an impression may concern a real situation, and real situations have conditions. Circumstances can open a possibility, and circumstances can impose a limit. But an easy path is not automatically God's path, and a difficult path is not automatically opposition. Ease does not prove guidance. Difficulty does not disprove it. Some people ignore every warning, neglect every preparation, and disregard every obligation. Then when preventable disorder follows, they call it a test of faith. No, sometimes it is a test of whether we will admit that we were careless. Prayer does not make reality disappear. It helps us face reality without fear. Then there is counsel. Seek people who are mature, truthful, discreet, and free enough to disagree with you. Do not select advisors the way a person selects answers from a menu, keeping only the ones that satisfy an appetite. If everybody you consult already knows that disagreement will end the relationship, you are not seeking counsel. You are recruiting agreement. And when you present the matter, tell the truth about it. Include the doubts. Include the cost. Include the facts that appear to oppose your preferred conclusion. Do not edit the story until approval becomes inevitable. Honest counsel requires an honest account. Now, counsel is not control. A wise advisor may reveal a blind spot, ask a question you avoided, or warn you about a consequence you did not see. But that person should not seize responsibility for a decision that belongs to you. You cannot spend your life saying, I did it because somebody else told me. Receive counsel, weigh it, and remain responsible before God. Think of practical wisdom, observable circumstances, and trustworthy counsel as three legs supporting a stool. Private impressions alone may leave your judgment unsteady. These three supports do not become God, and none of them is infallible. But together they can expose imbalance and keep you from falling under the weight of your own certainty. What if wise people disagree? Slow down. Pray further. Ask clearer questions. Re-examine the facts. Look for the point of disagreement. And do not silence concern by declaring that God has spoken. If your conclusion is sound, manipulation is unnecessary. Let me say it again. No circumstance, advisor, or calculation replaces God. But refusing facts, consequences, and counsel can disguise stubbornness as spirituality. Now we have connected inward discernment with truth, character, reality, and community. Yet one inward witness still needs careful definition because it is often named and often misunderstood. That witness is peace. Now, settled inward peace can accompany mature direction. Do not dismiss it. But we must define our terms carefully because people use the word peace to describe several different things. Relief is not always peace. You may feel temporary relief because you avoided a difficult conversation, delayed a known duty, or chose the easiest option. The pressure stopped for a moment, so you said, "I have peace." No, you may only have escaped discomfort. Deep steadiness is different. It can remain even when obedience is costly. You may tremble and still possess inward steadiness. You may grieve and still know that you are acting truthfully. You may have unanswered questions and yet remain settled about the next responsible step. Emotion does not automatically cancel peace. Notice the contrast. Anxious compulsion bullies you. It says, "Do it now, or everything will be lost." It will not let you ask questions, count the cost, or listen to counsel. Mature guidance can be firm, but it does not need panic to maintain its authority. There can be urgency without frenzy, and conviction without confusion. So test the peace itself. Does it remain when you face the full cost of the decision? Does it remain when you acknowledge your ethical duties? Does it remain when you consider how your action will affect other people? A feeling that survives only while inconvenient facts are ignored is not a trustworthy guide, and peace must remain in company with the other safeguards. It does not outrank Scripture. It does not excuse damaged character. It does not silence wisdom, erase circumstances, or make counsel unnecessary. Peace is a steadying witness within discernment, not a solitary verdict above discernment. Do not borrow somebody else's peace either. Another person may be very certain about what you should do, but their certainty does not remove your responsibility before God. Listen respectfully, examine carefully, and refuse to let another person's confidence force you into language or action you cannot honestly own. If the only impulse available is panic, pride, or pressure, and no known duty requires immediate action, wait. Become quiet again. Pray. Revisit the test. Waiting is not passivity when it protects you from frantic presumption. Let me say it again. Peace is not merely comfort, and it is not the absence of emotion. It is a steadiness that remains willing to face truth, cost, duty, and consequence. Now the main safeguards are in place. What you need next is a practical way to work through an impression without burying it on one side or rushing to announce it on the other. Now let us put the whole process into an order you can actually use. Pray. Become quiet. Name the impression. Test it. Wait if necessary. Then identify the responsible next step. Begin by stating the impression in one plain sentence. Not "God has revealed the entire future to me." Say what you actually sense. "I am considering this opportunity," or "I have a continuing caution about this decision." Plain language keeps you honest. Then separate the impression from your interpretation of it. Perhaps you sense that you should speak with someone. That does not automatically mean you know what that person will say, how the conversation will end, or what must happen afterward. One inward concern can collect 5 conclusions if you are not careful. Next, write down what you know, what you assume, what remains uncertain, and what must be verified. Facts belong in one column, assumptions belong in another. Do not let them change places simply because you feel strongly. Now apply the tests in order. Does the proposed direction agree with biblical truth? What kind of character and fruit is it producing? Is it practically wise? What do the circumstances actually show? What does trustworthy counsel reveal? And is there settled peace when the full cost is honestly considered? Record the impression and the reasoning around it. Why? Because emotion has a way of rewriting yesterday. A week later, people sometimes remember the original impression is far clearer than it was. Writing it plainly preserves honesty. Repeated clarity over time can matter more than one intense moment if the concern remains steady through prayer, testing, changing emotions, and honest counsel. Pay attention. But repetition does not excuse failure. A mistaken idea repeated every morning is still a mistaken idea if it contradicts truth or produces corrupt fruit. After testing, there are 3 possible outcomes. Reject the impression because it fails the test. Continue holding it prayerfully because clarity is incomplete. Or proceed with a step proportionate to the clarity you possess. And if the impression concerns another person, use restraint. Do not burden them with an untested declaration. Do not announce their future, direct their private choices, or place divine pressure upon them. Confidentiality and humility are part of discernment too. Take a current decision now and walk through the process. State it plainly. Separate fact from assumption. Apply the test. Do not force a conclusion just to finish the exercise. The purpose is faithful discernment, not instant certainty. There you have a working method. Pray, become quiet, name, test, wait, and act responsibly. Yet a sound process will sometimes produce clarity, and it will sometimes leave uncertainty. That uncertainty must also be handled maturely. Now, some decisions become clear gradually. There is nothing dishonest about saying, "I do not know yet." Honest uncertainty is far better than false certainty dressed in spiritual language. But waiting does not mean doing nothing. While clarity develops, continue the duties you already know. Keep your word. Maintain integrity. Gather the missing information. Repair a neglected relationship if one needs attention. Prepare responsibly for the possibilities before you. You can remain active without pretending to possess the whole answer. The absence of special direction does not cancel ordinary wisdom. It does not release you from established responsibilities. If the work is yours to do, do it. If the truth is yours to tell, tell it. If a promise is yours to keep, keep it. You do not need a new impression to obey what is already clear. Some people keep searching for another voice, another sign, another meeting, or another emotional experience. Why? Because the previous answer did not agree with what they wanted. So they keep asking until something finally says yes. That is not patient discernment. That is shopping for confirmation. Think about driving at night. Your headlights may not reveal the entire road, but they can show enough for the next part of the journey. Limited visibility does not require you to drive into a ditch, and it does not always require you to stop the car. You move carefully within the light you have. Now, there are times when delay is wise. Slow down if the decision will be difficult to reverse. Wait if important facts are missing, your motives remain disturbed, or trustworthy counsel has raised serious concerns. A little patience can prevent a great deal of repair. But delay can also become disobedience. If the right action is already clear and you keep praying because you do not want to do it, prayer has become an excuse. Perhaps you need to apologize, make restitution, accept responsibility, or tell the truth. Do not ask God for a new direction when courage is a real thing you lack. So change the question. Do not ask only what is the whole plan. Ask what faithful action is already clear today. Perhaps you cannot make the final decision yet, but you can gather a fact. You can seek honest counsel. You can correct a wrong attitude. You can fulfill today's duty. Let me say it again. Prayer prepares the heart for direction, but maturity is often revealed in how you behave before complete direction arrives. You can wait without fear, act without presumption, and remain peaceful without manufacturing certainty. Whether clarity comes suddenly or gradually, guidance becomes useful only when it is translated into the next obedient step. That is where we go now. Now, guidance is not given merely to produce an interesting inward experience. You can pray, sense, examine, and discuss a matter for months, but eventually tested direction must shape conduct. What is the next obedient step? It is the smallest clear action that faithfully responds to what you have discerned without pretending to know more than you know. Notice those words, smallest, clear, faithful. Perhaps the next step is to ask a needed question. Perhaps it is to seek counsel, make an apology, gather facts, decline an unethical option, or begin preparing for a possible change. Sometimes the right step is to wait, but if you wait, establish when and how you will review the matter again. Otherwise, waiting can become a pleasant name for avoidance. A step is not the same as a leap. The scale of your action should match the scale of your clarity. If other people, finances, commitments, or reputations will be affected, do not treat a faint impression as sufficient authority for a massive decision. Let me put it this way. If you see enough light to take one step, take one step. Do not claim that you can see the entire staircase, and do not jump from the landing to prove that you have faith. Reversible steps can sometimes help you test your understanding responsibly. You may gather information, begin preparation, or hold a preliminary conversation without making a final commitment. But an irreversible decision calls for stronger confirmation, greater patience, and fuller consideration of consequences. Do not announce a grand conclusion when only a small act of obedience has become clear. If you know you should speak with someone, then have the conversation. Do not add a prediction about how that conversation must end. Obey what is clear and leave what is unclear, unclaimed. And take ownership of your decision. Do not blame God, your prayer, or your advisors for a choice you are responsible to make. You may say after prayer and careful testing, this is the decision I believe is right. That language is both faithful and honest. Action itself may reveal further information. A conversation can uncover facts. Preparation can expose motives. One responsible step may show whether the direction remains steady or needs correction. Guidance often unfolds while you obey what has already become clear. So name one action now. Is it clear? Is it ethical? Is it timely? Is it appropriately sized for the clarity you possess? If it is, commit to doing it. No drama, no inflated announcement, just responsible obedience. That is how prayerful discernment becomes movement while humility remains intact. And now we can return to the warning with which we began and gather every safeguard into one memorable pattern for daily life. Now let us return to where we began. The danger is not only missing direction through neglect, the danger is also causing harm by giving every strong impression divine authority. We do not have to live in either ditch. We do not have to dismiss every inward leading, and we do not have to believe every inward movement. There is a mature path. Pray beyond your present understanding. Then become quiet. Receive impressions humbly. Name them accurately. Test them thoroughly. Wait when clarity is incomplete, and obey what becomes responsibly clear. Remember what each safeguard does. Scripture sets the boundary. Character reveals the fruit. Wisdom considers reality. Circumstances supply context. Trustworthy counsel exposes blind spots. Settled peace steadies the heart. And obedience turns discernment into faithful conduct. Now ask yourself, which part do I most often skip? Do I act without praying? Do I pray without becoming quiet? Do I notice an impression but refuse to test it? Do I become impatient with waiting? Do I avoid counsel because I fear disagreement? Or do I keep examining the matter after the next step is already clear? Be honest before God. Name the outcome you prefer and release your demand for it. Admit where you have spoken with more certainty than you truly possessed. Become willing to correct your course. Humility does not disqualify you from guidance. Humility prepares you to follow it faithfully. Perhaps you need to reject an impression because it requires compromise. Perhaps you need to continue testing because clarity has not matured. Or perhaps you already know the next right step and must stop hiding delay behind more prayer. Let me say it one final time. Prayer in the Spirit prepares the heart for direction, and mature guidance is recognized through tested understanding and faithful obedience. So become quiet now. Bring the decision before God without fear and without exaggeration. Pray, listen, test, obey. Carry humility about what you do not know, confidence in the truth you have received, and responsibility for the action you take. Then do the next clear thing faithfully, peacefully, and without drama.